Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. Before I begin on the stories, I just wanted to mention, if you have your own personal scary story that you would like to send me for me to possibly narrate here on the channel, you can do so by sending it to southerncannibal.com. So if you have a personal true scary story that you'd like to share, please consider sending it my way. Now that all that's out of the way, let's begin. So a bit of context. I'm a 17-year-old 5'3" female, and I live by an elementary school. For the layout of my neighborhood, it's a cul-de-sac on the top of a hill. After the hill and across the street is the school. I really like to run to and back to the school as I live in a nice neighborhood. I'm not considered fat, but I am more mid-size, and I'm trying to get into better shape. But this particular Monday morning made me stop going to the park for 2 weeks. As I was halfway done with my jog, I went across the street on the crosswalk. My foot barely touched the pavement as I got a phone call from my boyfriend, which made me stop in my tracks to answer. Then, I got a gust of wind in my face as a gray 2014 Honda Odyssey almost hit me. The speed limit's about 15 miles on this road, and the psycho was going about 45. I know that might not be that scary, but I could have lost my life that day if it weren't for my boyfriend. To be honest, I'm really glad it was me who almost got hit, and not some clueless little kid who had a higher chance of not paying attention, and who would have probably had a higher chance of getting killed. I later found out that they ended up catching the speeder, and apparently he got his license revoked after breaking traffic laws for like the 5th time. Which I hope to God is true, as I never saw that person's car near the school again. And please, coming from a former child educator, please teach your kids to look both ways when crossing the street, and to always slow down in school areas. I'm a 21-year-old female, but the story took place when I freshly turned 18 years old. I had started a job at CVS about 20 minutes away from my house during the summer, right before I started college. It was an alright job. The pay was a lot better than the grocery stores and fast food restaurants in the area, and the hours were pretty flexible. I was always stuck working the night shift since I was the youngest and newest employee, but I never really minded that. Night shift was always dead after the pharmacy left for the night. So most nights I just played on my phone to pass time. The night this event occurred wasn't a normal night for the store. The pharmacy had stayed later than usual until around 9 p.m. in order to catch up on their work. So at about 8:30 p.m., a man entered the store, and I knew just by looking at him that there was something off. He was a large man, and he was really dirty and greasy looking. I said my usual hello, but all he did was stare at me for a few seconds before he went back towards the pharmacy. Well, 9 p.m. rolls around and the pharmacy comes up to the front to leave. There was no sign of the man anywhere. "Did you guys ring up that guy that came in here?" I asked one of the techs while I checked their bags. What guy? Nobody came back here," the tech replied before she left with her things. Shit. I guess he was still in the store somewhere. I walked up and down the aisles, but there was no sign of him. Just as I was about to round the corner into the bathroom hallway, there he was, standing in the dark hallway right outside the employee's bathroom. "What time do you close?" he muttered at me, staring directly at me as he talked. It took a few seconds to register that he spoke, as he just stood there. But as I was about to answer, I smelled it. It kind of smelled like a mixture of body odor and decay, and I really had to pull myself together in order not to gag. 9. We're about to close up," I answered, then stepping back so he could leave. He then pushed past me, the smell following him as he walked out of the store. I checked the bathrooms, which were thankfully clean, right before I left. Lo and behold, guess who just happened to be parked right next to me outside? That's right, it was the man. I had my manager walk me to my car, but the man was just standing by his car in the dark parking lot. I got in my car, and he got in his. I pulled out of the parking lot, and he pulled right out of the lot behind me. As I was driving, I thought it was just a coincidence that he was driving right behind me. I mean, he was surely going to pull off to some side street, right? Wrong. As I neared my neighborhood, he was still right on my tail. I knew that I had to act fast, so I decided to take the long way home instead. As soon as I knew the coast was clear, I forded down the streets, practically going airborne a few times as I sped to my house. I parked my car inside the garage that night so that he wouldn't be able to see my car by driving down the street. But that never happened. Nobody drove down my street that night, or at least I don't think they did. Nothing ever happened again at the store, and luckily I never saw the man again. This happened back in October of 2013. I'm a 29-year-old male, but at the time of this event, I was only 21 years old. I had worked at a warehouse from 3 until about 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now, usually each night, when me and all of my coworkers would be leaving to head home, the majority of my coworkers would pull out of the parking lot and then would make a right-hand turn, while me and maybe 2 other coworkers would make a left-hand turn. And on this night, those 2 had left before me. When I made that left-hand turn out of the parking lot and came to the first traffic light, I had stopped and waited for the light to turn green. While I was waiting, I noticed an SUV pull up behind me and then stop. I was a little annoyed, wondering why he didn't get in the other lane, considering there were only 2 on the road going in this direction on a 2-lane highway. But I didn't think much of it. As the light turns green, I pull off, and I'm driving normal, and the SUV was behind me the whole time. As I'm driving, my plan was to stop by my parents' house for a minute, since I had to pass their house to get to mine. I was in the left lane doing about 70 miles per hour, and every time I looked in the rearview mirror, the SUV was still behind me at about the same distance. I got over in the right lane and slowed down a little to let him go past. I wasn't really nervous at the time. I was just getting really tired of seeing his headlights in my mirror. Once I got over and slowed down to 65 miles per hour, he did the exact same thing. And now I'm like, okay, this guy is weird. I decided not to go to my parents' house and to just drive on home. As I get on the freeway, I get over in the fast lane doing about 85 to 90 miles per hour, honestly by force of habit. And what do I see? It's the same SUV that had been following me the whole time. Every lane I move to, he moves to the same lane. If I speed up, he would too. And if I slowed down, he would do that too. I got off at the exit where I lived, but I didn't dare go into my apartment complex. Instead, I went past the complex and I went to a gas station. I pulled up to a pump like I was about to get gas, and that same SUV pulled up right behind me once again. When I looked in the mirror, I saw 2 men in the truck with ski masks on. At the time, there were 2 homeless men at the gas station, and they both came to my car asking if I had any change I could spare. And I believe these 2 men really saved my life, because as soon as they walked up to my car, the SUV peeled out. Once they got on the street, they started driving really slow. I waited for them to get a little ways down the street before I left, but to my horror, they were watching me, because as soon as I pulled out of the gas station, they then made a U-turn in the middle of the street and started driving towards me again, but I was able to lose them this time. I haven't seen that truck again since, but I do really want to thank those homeless guys. I really do believe they saved me. This experience happened to my friend and I about a month ago. For reference, we're both 18-year-old males who live in Melbourne, Australia. My friend and I are what most would describe as stoners. We smoke weed daily. However, due to my strict dad, we always smoke at my friend's place. My friend lives in an apartment in a government housing complex. These complexes are well known for attracting a lot of shady characters, meaning there's constant crime in the area, such as carjackings, robberies, drug use, etc. However, usually as long as you mind your own business, you can avoid most of the trouble. But not always, as you'll find out. On this particular night, my friend and I were smoking up at his apartment again, like any other night, and we had gone through a few joints at this point, and were really high. We decided to roll another couple of joints and drive to a nearby park to continue our smoke session. This is something we did pretty regularly. I remember it being around 11 p.m. as we were leaving, so we leave his apartment and we take the stairs down to the ground level. We exit the complex and we walk to the adjacent street to where my car was parked. On the way to my car, we see a couple outside a car arguing. Both the man and the woman were standing outside of the car, on either side with the doors open, while they were arguing. I didn't hear what they were arguing about, and I didn't get a good look at the couple either initially, because in my high state of mind, I guess I was just focused on getting to my car and avoiding any unwanted confrontation, which eye contact could cause. However, something I did notice is when we walked past the couple, their arguing just completely ceased, and I could feel them watching us. My car was parked another 20 meters down the street, so we then walked to it and got in. I realize now that I must have been especially high that night, as I kind of have a habit of always locking the doors as soon as I get in the car. But for some reason on this night, I totally forgot to do so. So as I was fiddling around for my keys, my friend who's sitting in the passenger seat just happens to be looking over his shoulder when he abruptly yells, "Bro, lock the fucking car!" Without questioning, I quickly slammed down the lock located under the driver's side window with my elbow, and we then hear the familiar click sound that the car makes when it locks. Not even a second later after I locked the car, we look behind us to see the woman from the couple frantically attempting to open the car door of the rear seat to no avail. We can hear the sound of the handles being pulled multiple times before she gives up. She then runs up to my door and tries to open it as well. Once she realizes she's not getting into the car, she comes up to my window and she gets really close to the glass, then screaming,
"Please, I need your help. I'm desperate. Please help me."
Now that the woman was literally inches away from me, with only the car window separating us, I could very clearly see her features. She was really skinny and she was missing most of her teeth. She looked like she was in her 50s, but was likely much younger. She clearly looked like a drug user. In my high state, I didn't know what was going on in the moment because it all happened so fast, but I definitely knew that I didn't want to stick around to find out. I stuck my keys in the ignition, threw the car in drive, and gunned it out of there. I checked my rearview mirror and saw the woman walking angrily back to the man. I was initially in a state of shock, whereas my friend who was next to me was just dying of laughter. We both ended up having a laugh about it and just continued with our night. We really only comprehended the gravity of the situation when we finally sobered up. The theory we came up with was that the woman and the man planned to rob us as she attempted to open the door before saying anything. I think she only started screaming she needed help when she realized the car was locked and that she would need to lure us out to do what she planned. I haven't seen that woman or man since this happened. I can't stop thinking about what would have happened if I didn't lock the car in time and she actually managed to get into the car. The truth is, despite our theories, we really don't know for certain what the couple had planned for us, but I'm definitely glad we didn't have to find out. The moral of the story is to always keep your doors locked and always be aware of your surroundings. So this takes place in California. For reference, I was 23 years old at the time and a male, and I worked as a delivery driver for a medical marijuana shop. I was taking my last run of the night at around 10:30 p.m. and was in a relatively nice part of town by some beachfront properties and condos that are mostly rented out to tourists. I was listening to scary podcasts, vaping up a storm, and texting my customer that I was nearing his home. All of my customers would meet me at the window, which, as sketchy as this sounds, was a lot safer than me getting out of the car and being open to attack. As I was about a half a mile down from my destination, a sketchy early 2000s Toyota Camry pulled up on my ass and started riding it hard. I would have to begin slowing down to search for the house, as it was a dark street, so I pulled over and let them pass. It's been a long day. I was on my 10th hour on the road, and I had no time for bullshit or delays. I was hungry, tired, and just had 3 orders before it was time to turn in my money and go home. I was really pissed off that this guy was getting in my way and getting in the way of my route in the first place, so I started riding his ass right back. Although it was a nice touristy part of town, I wasn't far away from more of a sketchy area known for gang-related crimes and violence. I should have thought of this because the Camry did just what I did. Pulled over, let me pass, and started riding my bumper all the way to the customer's house. He got out and approached my window. My first thought was that my customer had been to the ATM and recognized my car, as described in the text I sent with my ETA. This has happened before, and it all seemed to click. So I figured he was trying to catch up with me and flag my car, maybe avoiding having to do the deed in front of his parents' house or something. I was wrong. I was met with someone that appeared younger to me, but also appeared extremely tweaked out of his mind. He stared me down, pulled out a gun, and slammed it onto my windowsill, then aimed it at me, but still concealed by his body. He almost made me laugh with his opening line, which was, "This ain't a robbery by any means, bro, but you do have to show me what's in your wallet, okay?" I'm not a macho or physically threatened person by any means, minus a lot of tattoos. However, the guy in my window had tattoos on his face, so I didn't anticipate intimidating him. But I also had a lot of company money and a lot of tip money, and as mentioned before, I had a really long day, and I wasn't going to let some tweaked out 19-year-old ruin my night. I was sweating through my clothes, but tried to stay composed. I just prayed this guy wasn't working with my future customer, and didn't know how much cannabis was in my car. So I told him I was there with Uber Eats, and that somebody was to walk out and pick up the food. I told him I didn't have any money, Uber pays me straight to the bank, and that the most valuable thing I had in my car was a vape, which he could have if he wanted. I looked him in the eye and I told him I was broke as he was, because in reality, I honestly probably was. And somehow, this actually worked. He smacked the side of the car with the gun a few times, and he told me to watch my back, and then booked it. I dropped off my package to a senior, who I really doubt co-orchestrated the unsuccessful robbery. The funniest part was there was actually a cop that was stationed about 2 blocks past the house. I quit my job 2 days later, and I was actually promoted to something that didn't involve driving. Let this be a warning to delivery drivers of any kind. Be aware of your surroundings, be careful at night, make people come to your passenger side so they don't have room to get in your face. That's all I got. Just the most exhilarating 5 minutes of my life so far. Definitely had to share this with all the other delivery homies. Stay vigilant and safe, my friends. This happened to me back in 2019. I was 20 years old at the time, and this experience was just really off-putting. I'm from Colorado, and I live in the suburbs about 20 minutes outside Denver. I've always thought of where I lived as being particularly safe, and so when this event happened, I was totally shocked. I'm a male, by the way, for anyone who cares. It was about 1 in the morning, and I was driving home from my grandma's house. My family is a bunch of night owls, so we go all night. I was really debating whether I took the main road home, which is more well lit at night, or drive through an area called the farm, which is a lot less well lit, but faster. Can you guess which way I took? I drove down the long road and turned into the farm, and then began driving. Now, there's this bridge I have to cross that takes me to a stop that leads me into my neighborhood. So I go through this windy road through the suburbs, and I can see the bridge from the distance, which looks to be closed off. It looked as if a hazard gate was blocking it. You know, the ones that reflect when your headlights hit it. And it kind of looked like an officer in a tan uniform was also standing, waving at me. I assumed nothing of it and figured maybe the bridge was just out. But as I got closer, I realized what I saw wasn't at all what I thought. First, it wasn't a gate. It was actually toilet paper blocking off the bridge. And the officer I saw, well, it wasn't an officer, but it was a man. And he was shirtless with a sack over his head, with 2 eye holes cut out. And he was waving a machete at me as if saying hello. Yeah, you got me bent if you think I stayed around to see what was going to happen. I put my car in reverse so fast, made a U-turn, and floored it the hell out of there. As I was driving back up the road, I had noticed another car speeding downwards towards the man, but didn't seem to follow me out. I didn't care. I called my mom, who told me to call 911, which I did, and I can't make this next part up. As I was on the phone with the police and driving back on the main road, I then saw a car wreck on the opposite side of the road with 2 bodies laying out on the street and cops standing over them. That's just a sidebar to just how freaky the night was. Needless to say, I was glad when I finally got home, but I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. I know this isn't the scariest story on the channel, but imagine driving down a dark road, it's 1 a.m, and you just casually see a man in a sack mask waving a machete at you. Many would probably say, oh, I'd hit him, or I'd get out and fight him. But don't lie. We all know we'd be making the quickest U-turn of our lives. Not to mention, I honestly low-key think that other car that was coming down was a friend of the man, and maybe they planned to jump an innocent like me just trying to get home. Moral of the story, take the well-lit roads home at night. And remember, it's always smarter to flight, not fight.